welcome viewers. I'm Pia and you're watching the Africa Brief on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the headlines. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey and Jordan have condemned the Rapid Support Forces for atrocities during their takeover of El Fasher in Darfur. This comes after Sudanese government says more than 2,000 civilians were killed in 2 days amid reports of executions and sexual violence. Cameroon's opposition leaders have rejected the presidential election results that handed the presidency to Paul Biya for another term, calling the vote illegitimate. The Constitutional Council had declared Biya the winner with over 53% of ballots, sparking violent protests across major cities. According to local Red Crescent officials, at least 18 migrants have died after their boat capsized off the coast of west of Libya's capital, Tripoli. More than 90 survivors were rescued near the towns of Sabratha and Surman, where volunteers recovered bodies and provided first aid. Tanzania heads to polls with President Samia Suluhu Hassan poised to tighten her hold on power amid reports of repression and opposition exclusion. Key opposition candidates have been disqualified, rallies banned and critics abducted or arrested ahead of the vote. Nigerian Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka has stated that the United States has revoked his visa and barred him from entering the country. Soyinka, who once tore up his U.S. green card in protest of Donald Trump's election, believes his past criticism of the U.S. president may have prompted the ban. Gaza Civil Defense says that at least 50 people have been killed and dozens wounded in 3 Israeli airstrikes across the territory as the IDF accuses Hamas of attacking its troops in Gaza and violating the ceasefire, a charge that Hamas has denied. US President Donald Trump met his South Korean counterpart Lee Jae-myung. Trump has stated that a new trade deal with South Korea will be finalized very soon. Hurricane Melissa is moving from Jamaica to Cuba. Over 735,000 people have been evacuated as the Category 4 storm approaches southeastern Cuba, bringing life-threatening flooding and destructive winds. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey and Jordan have condemned atrocities committed by Sudan's paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, during their capture of El Fasher. The city fell after a 17-month siege, with Sudan's government now reporting over 2,000 civilians have been killed in the last 2 days. Aid agencies, meanwhile, say that they've received credible accounts of summary executions, house raids and sexual violence. Satellite images analyzed by Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab show clusters of human-sized bodies and red soil marks suggesting possible mass graves. Researchers say that the killings may constitute war crimes or even genocide. Regional powers have urged an immediate ceasefire and safe humanitarian access. In fact, the United Nations has called the fall of El Fasher a terrible escalation, warning that foreign interference is deepening the conflict. The RSF, which grew out of Janjaweed militias, is accused of genocide in the 2000s. It now controls nearly all of the Darfur region in Sudan. The violence, of course, raises fears of a renewed split in Sudan, which has already been torn apart by a civil war that's killed tens of thousands of people and has also displaced more than 12 million people. With us on the broadcast is Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. He's a former Indian diplomat joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Yesterday, of course, we tracked the development that the Sudanese army had withdrawn from Al Fasher, and in a span of just 24 hours, it seems that a humanitarian crisis has escalated on the ground, with the RSF now conducting summary executions. Sexual violence reports have also come out. It was a 17-month-long siege, after which this has now taken place. In your assessment, what needs to be done further to alleviate the dire crisis for the civilians on the ground?
Thank you. It's a good question, but there are no ready answers. Uh, I think the bitter civil war in Sudan has defied various attempts at intervention and containment. Uh, Sudan is one of the largest countries by area and population in Africa, and it straddles at the cusp of North Africa, which is mostly Arab and Muslim, and Southern Africa or Sub Saharan Africa, which is largely uh, Christian and nomadic, as well as the animist religions.
Hmm.
Uh, the fight concerns at the moment in the Darfur region in the west of Sudan, which is as big as country of France
Hmm.
in area. Uh, this has been largely populated by black Africans, some of whom are Muslims, but many are uh, animist in their or Christians.
Hmm.
Southern Sudan seceded internationally about a decade ago and has become a separate country. But
Hmm.
what remains of Sudan is has Darfur and Kordofan provinces, which are west and south respectively, where the civil war has been waging with with ferocity.
Hmm.
Uh, of particular focus has been northern Darfur's El
Yes.
Fasher town, which is the capital, where a siege has been in place for 17 months, as you yourself said.
Hmm.
This area is is a uh, is a stronghold of RSF, which was created as a paramilitary organization to curb the local separatist
Hmm.
tendencies in Darfur region, which I mentioned have their own ethnicity, etc.
Hmm.
And they have been effective but quite brutal over the past 2 decades
Hmm.
under al-Bashir, who was the Sudan's dictator. After Bashir fell, the Sudanese armed forces and RSF fell out with each other, and the civil war has been going on for 2 years and 8 months by now.
Hmm.
Here, we must mention that Darfur is Darfur and Kordofan are held by RSF,
Hmm.
while rest of the country is held by SAF, Sudan Armed
Armed forces.
Forces.
Yes.
They are two generals who lead the respective outfits, and they see almost no sunshine among them.
Hmm.
They hate each other, and the earlier attempts to uh, pacify, have some limited ceasefire, have not had any success.
Hmm.
Darfur was North Darfur's capital, Al Fashir, was with SAF. That
Yes.
was the only town in entire Darfur and Kordofan region where SAF had its presence. And with this debacle,
Hmm.
SAF has been totally eliminated from Darfur, and therefore a de facto partition of the country between SAF and
Yes.
RSF has come into being.
Hmm.
Now, RSF uh, claims that whoever was left in Al Fashir after 17 months of siege, it was SAF supporter. And they have gone ahead after their victory or in Al Fashir to eliminate these people or expel them or repress them.
Hmm.
So that is what is happening at the moment. The appeals have been made by United Nations and other agencies, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, etc., have issued statements,
Yes.
but RSF is unlikely to pay any heed to them. It has its own backers internationally. and among them, main is said to be the United Arab Emirates, which has bankrolled them and supplied weapons, etc., according to anecdotal evidence, although both UAE and RSF denies it. Wagner Group of Russia has
Yes.
been off and on engaged by RSF, as have been various militias in Chad and eastern part of Libya, which is also facing similar civil war situation. Central African Republic and also in the south has been a conduit for supplies, etc. So that is the situation, and I'm afraid uh, pacification, as RSF sees it, would continue, and this area is known for brutal handling by RSF of the African, ethnic African uh, locals, and that has created a fearsome expectation. Thank you.
Indeed, I request you to stay on with us. I'll get to your point that you've made regarding international involvement. We're now learning that the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies have stated that 5 of their volunteers have been killed in Sudan and 3 others are now missing. They were distributing food in the central city of Bara on the 27th of October, clearly identifiable in official West when they were attacked. The city has recently been seized by the RSF. It's been, of course, locked in a civil war, as Ambassador Sajdev was pointing out, with the Sudanese army since April 2023. Rights groups now say that the RSF's latest advances across central Sudan and Darfur have left hundreds of civilians dead. Allegations both sides are denying while blaming each other for rights abuses. The Red Cross, meanwhile, says that it is horrified and is urgently trying to locate its missing volunteers. Ambassador Mahesh Sajdev still with us on the broadcast. Sir, you had pointed out to the involvement of the UAE, the Wagner Group as well. We know the Saudis as well have been eyeing what's taking place very, very closely. Egypt too. In fact, the general of the Sudanese armed forces, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, was recently in Egypt holding a meeting with senior officers over there as well. Keeping in light this, as well as the statement by the United Nations calling for no foreign interference on one hand, and the fact that the RSF and the Sudanese army are pitted against each other, they're not backing down. This has created something of a catch-22 situation as far as ensuring a ceasefire is concerned. How do you think then a process towards reconciliation can proceed, if that's even possible at this point?
Well, thinking out of box, one would like to imagine that once RSF has consolidated its hold on Darfur and Kordofan, it would, and the battle lines would stabilize between it and the SAF-controlled regions. Then the consolidation and political wheeling dealing can begin. None of the two sides have the capacity to overrun the other in totality. So a de facto division of the country has taken place, and now perhaps talks can be held and the two sides can be persuaded to focus on governing their respective parts and forget about the ambitions of running the entire country to themselves.
All right, sir, requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking some other crucial updates. Viewers, breaking news coming in at this time from the Middle East. Israeli military has stated that it has commenced renewing enforcement of the Gaza ceasefire agreement after striking dozens of targets overnight. This comes as Gaza's Civil Defense Ministry has stated that at least 50 people have been killed and dozens more have been wounded in fresh Israeli airstrikes. Officials report that rescuers are still pulling bodies from the rubble after at least 3 major strikes have taken place in this particular region. The attacks, in fact, have come just hours after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered intensified operations, accusing Hamas of violating the truce. Israel has accused Hamas of attacking its troops in Gaza and violating the ceasefire, while Hamas has denied these allegations. Israeli officials, in fact, say that the renewed strikes have targeted Hamas's infrastructure, while Gaza authorities have warned of the growing humanitarian crisis as rescue efforts continue across several neighborhoods. That's not all. In fact, an IDF personnel lost their lives in combat. This was, in fact, a message put out by the Israeli Defense Ministry earlier itself. The IDF soldier has been identified as 37-year-old Yonah Ephraim Feldbaum. More news coming in, this time from Tanzania. Tanzanians are seen heading to the polls in a high-stakes election that President Samia Suluhu Hassan is reportedly expected to win. By casting their votes, Tanzanians will also be choosing members of the 400-seat parliament and leaders for the semi-autonomous Zanzibar archipelago alongside the country's president. Now, these polls are taking place without the country's main opposition parties. The Electoral Commission disqualified Chadema earlier this year after it refused to sign an electoral code of conduct. Additionally, Chadema leader Tundu Lissu remains on trial for treason, the charges of which he has denied. Moreover, the commission has removed another contesting candidate who belonged to the second largest opposition party in Tanzania. This candidate omissions have left President Hassan facing only minor party challengers. The CCM party, which has dominated Tanzanian politics since 1997, is expected to retain power. The Election Commission now says that results will be announced within 3 days. The Tanzanian government suppressing of dissent and cracking down on opposition groups has attracted sharp criticism from Amnesty International in particular. But the Tanzanian government has also dismissed the amnesty report, stating that it was inconsistent with the country's legal and institutional safeguards. Meanwhile, in a related development, a former Tanzanian ambassador to Cuba, who is now a government critic, was reportedly taken from his home by unknown assailants earlier this month. Local police authorities say that they are investigating this particular incident. Still with us on the broadcast is Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. We are now seeing Tanzanians head to polls to in fact cast their ballot, but there's been a shadow that has been cast in this election due to the opposition not being involved, not being there on the ballot itself, that the trials taking place against the main opposition leader, the fact that dissent is being suppressed, a former ambassador who's been a government critic as of late also now being abducted in Cuba. What do you make of what is transpiring? Is it a genuine democratic exercise? Because we do see that several other neighboring countries have seen coups, military coups and military authorities take over power. So the fact that a democratic exercise is taking place, is it genuine or is it mere optics?
I think it's a valid question, but once again, one would have to parry the precise reply. In much of Africa, democracy does exist, but it is heavily compromised by the practicalities of statecraft and local politics and tribal issues. Tanzania, unfortunately, happens to be one of such cases. There are a number of problems which observers had given to some optimism when the current president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, came to power in 2021. She was one of the very few women presidents that Africa has seen and was expected to be largely apolitical and technocratic, having been from an academician earlier. But over the past 4 years, her economic performance has been remarkably good. A lot of work on infrastructure, etc., has been done. But in political circles, she has had less of a success. Tanzania, a 68 million population country, is the 2/3 to 1/3 split between Christians, which dominate, and the Muslims. and she belongs to Muslim community. So that is one fault line. Second fault line is the growth has not been percolating to the people who need it, and the fruits of development have not yet been passed down properly to those who need it most. Uh, at the same time, uh, there have been reports of uh, inconvenient politicians in opposition to her being debarred from elections, as well as the media and press freedom, etc., being curbed. So that has blemished the elections. She would have, according to most observers, won it anyway, thanks to her good economic performance.
Yes,
Thank
sir,
you.
please go ahead.
Well, in such a situation, one should add that we have seen even more developed uh, political systems such as South Africa or Zimbabwe or Kenya have come under cloud. These are regional countries with whom Tanzania is often associated with. So that is why uh, Tanzania's decline in terms of relatively more tolerant democracy as compared to Uganda, Kenya, uh, Mozambique, and South Africa itself has uh, been lamented. Let us see if this is a short electoral response or whether it indicates a total turning the page of Tanzania's relatively tolerant political system.
All right, thank you so much, sir, for taking out time sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus away from Tanzania towards Cameroon. We're now learning that Cameroon's opposition leaders have rejected the presidential election results that have extended President Paul Biya's rule for another 7 years, stating that the outcome did not reflect the will of the people in a country battling separatist conflict. The Central African Nations Constitutional Council earlier declared Biya as the winner of the disputed vote with over 53% of the ballots, triggering violent protests in several cities in the country. Meanwhile, the Cameroon government has now acknowledged that at least 4 people have been killed since demonstrators took to the streets to protest the announcement that Biya had secured an 8th term in office. Listen in to what a minister had to say.
Le candidat Issa Chirou du Front pour le salut national du Cameroun, FSNC, s'est autoproclamé vainqueur de ce scrutin le 14 octobre 2025 en violation des dispositions du code électoral. Dans la foulée, ses partisans ont organisé de violentes manifestations dans plusieurs localités. Il convient de signaler qu'au cours de ces attaques criminelles, certains assaillants ont perdu la vie. Plusieurs éléments de nos forces de l'ordre ont également été grièvement blessés au cours des chauffourées avec.
With us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute, joining us from Tokyo. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Paul Biya has secured an 8th term. He secured 53.66% of the vote, to be accurate. This is not a result that the opposition in Cameroon has accepted. Opposition leader Issa Chiroma Bakari had earlier claimed victory based on his own tally. He's rejected the official results, calling the election a mere masquerade. What do you make of what's transpiring in Cameroon itself? Tensions are also flaring on the ground. We've been seeing protests breaking out. Do you think these could escalate any further?
Yes, in this case, without the presence of the president, of course, the people will not support him. Since the 1982, he has been the president in the Cameroon, so more than 40 years. And one time is 7 years now, the eighth time is a little crazy level. So that's why now he is 92 years old, and because of the health problem, he is staying in Europe, and most of the election campaign has conducted through the SNS. So the people, if people want to see him or his presence, even if such kind of situation, there is no presence of the president. Despite this, he won the election. Is it a fair election? That is very controversial. And in case of the Cameroon, the problem is recently the Boko Haram, the terror Islamic radicals attacking the northern part. And because of the historical background, some part of the country is English, former British colony, and other side France. And so French colony. So that's why some part want to be the independent from the Cameroon. And if this country lacks leadership and face a problem, like the other former French colonies, they change the government or coup has happened or something unstable situation has happened. And instead of the France, Russia will expand the influence. For example, the private military company Wagner, the Russian government backs the private military company. Their influence is spreading the Sahara region in the former French colonies. It will spread to the Cameroon too. So that's why the uncertainty in the Cameroon is could be the serious situation in this region and affect something like the domino could happen. So that's why the current situation in the Cameroon is concerning not only for Cameroon people but also the other country, neighboring country, or in the world, and many great power in the world too.
Indeed, and I also wanted to understand from you, because Paul Biya at the moment is 92 years old. He's held power, as you put it, since 1982. So there are health concerns regarding his succession as well. If his health fails suddenly, do you think that would create a sort of power vacuum and the institutions would then remain fragile?
I think so, because he's staying in Europe mainly. Most of the time he stay in Europe, not in Cameroon. So he formed the ruling party organization. This organization tried to maintain the government. So, so simply, it's, his survival or not is a concerning point too. And even if he survives, because of the health problem, can he work? That is another matter. And despite such kind of situations, he continued to say that he won the election. This is a little bit maybe controversial. Of course, controversial, I think.
All right, with that, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Nagao, for taking out time sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. Viewers, we're now learning that local Red Crescent officials have reported that at least 18 migrants have lost their lives after their boat capsized west of Libya's capital, Tripoli. While over 90 survivors have been rescued, we're now learning the Sabrata branch, a coastal town 76 kilometers from Tripoli, says that it launched a rescue operation. Bodies have been recovered near the port of Surman, with volunteers carrying them in white plastic bags and loading them into ambulances, as other workers are providing first aid to the survivors. Remember, earlier this month, medical officials recovered 61 migrant bodies along the Libyan coast near Zouara and Ras Ijdir, close to the Tunisian border. Since the fall of dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, Libya has become a major transit route for migrants fleeing conflict and poverty, attempting dangerous journeys across the Mediterranean to Europe. More news coming in, this time as far as Nigerian Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka is concerned. Wole Soyinka has stated that the United States has revoked his visa and banned him from entering the country. The 91-year-old author has stated that the U.S. consulate asked him to come in so his visa could be cancelled, citing new information that it refused to disclose. Soyinka called the notice a curious love letter from an embassy and warned U.S. institutions not to waste their time inviting him. He previously held U.S. permanent residency but famously tore up his green card in 2016 in protest against Donald Trump's election. Soyinka believes his outspoken criticism of U.S. President Donald Trump, including comparing him to Ugandan dictator Idi Amin, may have triggered the ban. The U.S. Embassy says it cannot comment on individual cases as new visa restrictions targeting several African nations continue to take effect. With that, it's a wrap on the Africa Brief. We will continue to track all of these updates very, very closely. Stay tuned on NewsX World as we dip into a quick short break.